Hello and welcome to today's lesson. Today we'll be studying about the 7 C's of communication. And as all of us know, communication is extremely important, whether it be in a corporate meeting or even in a classroom. If no one can understand what you're saying, you won't get your message across. And today to explain to us about the 7 C's of communication, we have Mr. S.V. Raman. Hello, sir.
Hello, welcome to the 7 C's of communication. Well, as you know, since time immemorial, communication has been an essential trait. One could even say a basic necessity among human beings and has played a very, very important role in the development and progress of mankind as a whole. In order to serve its purpose, communication, in whichever form it may be, whether it is oral or whether it is written, has to be effective. This implies that communication is certainly not a one-way street, but a two-way process demanding certain skills on the part of the sender as well as the receiver. With a view to facilitate this process, communication expert Francis J. Bergin developed what came to be popularly known as the 7 C's of communication. These are completeness, conciseness, clarity, correctness, concreteness, consideration, and courtesy. Let us first take the aspect of completeness. An incomplete communication can lead to misunderstandings and even chaotic situations. Any communication must contain all the relevant information required for appropriate understanding and interpretation of the message, including any action or decision to be taken on the part of the receiver. It also involves taking into consideration the comprehensive skills and limitations of the receiver. Any sort of assumptions have to be avoided so as not to create doubts in the mind of the receiver. For example, if a factory supervisor is instructing his workers to produce something, he has to exactly specify the size, shape, quality, and cost of the product. Not providing any of these data will lead to clarifications being sought perhaps by the individuals, and this will result in a waste of time as the same message will have to be repeated, thus indirectly impacting productivity. If a communication is in response to a letter or an email, then one has to ensure that all the points that have been touched in the letter or raised in the email are also adequately and appropriately addressed. Suppose the employees of a firm receive an email from their superior. Dear colleagues, this is just to remind you about our meeting tomorrow. Please attend. Best, B.K. Banerjee. Now, this is an incomplete message, as you can see. What meeting? What time? Where? What will be discussed? Just some minor additions to the message would have made it complete. For example, this is just to remind you about our scheduled meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the conference room to discuss the roadmap for our new project. Please come prepared with your inputs. Best, B.K. Banerjee. Now, this revised version gives clear information about the time, venue, and purpose of the meeting, and the recipients know precisely what is expected of them. In workplace situations, or wherever there might be legal implications, it is better to opt for a brief but complete written communication, say by email, rather than an oral communication over the phone, in order to avoid any subsequent ambiguities or blame games. In oral communication, you do not have a proof
That you've said something.
and it is one person's word against the other. Whereas, if you have it written down, even in an email, you can say, but this is what I received from you and it was incomplete. You can prove it. In such situations, written communication is always preferable over oral communication unless you want to bypass certain laws, which is what politicians do because they give orders only over the telephone. You see, whenever you hear of some favors being done to people, you will always hear, we received orders on the phone from above. Yeah? Now, let us next come to the point of conciseness. There is this old adage, in brevity lies the spice, or the acronym KISS, which expands to keep it short and simple. How often are we subjected to listen to a lecture or a speech that rattles on for nearly an hour, in effect conveying what could have perhaps been said in 30 minutes? Or, say, a 2-page letter or email that could have been effectively concluded in 2 lines. Now, why does this happen? Most communicators fail to master the art of preciseness and conciseness. They often tend to repeat themselves or unnecessarily overemphasize certain points. This may partly stem from a lack of self-confidence of the communicator, underestimating his own communication skills, or in some cases, underestimating the comprehension skills of the audience. Either way, it leaves the audience bored. While submitting a CV for a job, say, or any other purpose, most candidates have this misplaced conviction that the longer the CV, the more impressive it is. Absolutely wrong. Most busy people neither have the time nor the inclination to go through pages and pages of a CV. They look for the essentials, and this is where the art of conciseness comes into play, and the skill of précis writing, which most of us have honed during our school days, comes in very, very handy. The secret lies in elimination of repetitions and avoiding the use of unnecessarily adjectives or filler words and expressions. For example, for instance, you see, kind of, literally, basically, or I mean, etc. Or among the present younger generation, there is this tendency to, in every sentence, use the expression like 5 times. Yeah? Now, all this is redundant. Let us take an example. A mail is being sent. Hi Arnab, I wanted to touch base with you about the email marketing campaign we kind of sketched out last Thursday. I really think that our target market is definitely going to want to see the company's philanthropic efforts. I think that could make a big impact and it would stay in their minds longer than a sales pitch. For instance, if we talk about the company's efforts to become sustainable, as well as the charity work we are doing in local schools, then the people that we want to attract are going to remember our message longer. The impact will just be greater. Now, do you find this message all right?
No, sir.
Why? What is wrong with it?
Too many unnecessary expressions.
What do you think?
Could have been cut short.
So the same feeling that it is too long. Why is he going on and on? Yeah, meandering is a word
exactly.
for that. Okay. There is a lot of clutter in this mail that is taking up space unnecessarily. Now let us rework it a little bit. Suppose the same mail were to sound like this and say, Hi Arnab, I wanted to quickly discuss the email marketing campaign that we analyzed last Thursday. Our target market will want to know about the company's philanthropic efforts, especially our goals to become sustainable and help local schools. This would make a far greater impact and it would stay in their minds longer than a traditional sales pitch. So, certainly this is a better version than the previous one.
Obviously.
To clear any misunderstanding, when we talk of conciseness, conciseness does not have to do with length per se.
Yes.
Sometimes a 3-page letter may seem too short for the situation and for the purpose for which it is written. Or sometimes a 6-line email may seem too long for the situation or the purpose for which it has been written. So when we are talking about conciseness, we are not talking about overall reducing length irrespective of situation. That is not the case. So you have to handle it according to the situation. In all this matter of conciseness too, putting in the you view, that means don't always have an I attitude. Whenever you're communicating, always refer to the audience, say you. So that makes them feel involved in the communication and helps in matters. Next, we come to the aspect of clarity. Any communication should be put in simple terms to ensure clarity. The vocabulary chosen must convey the same meaning to the receiver as to the sender. That means we are on the same wavelength. I use a certain word, for me it means something. For you, if it means something else, then I'm not communicating properly to you. There is not clarity in my communication. Complex issues must be expressed in terms of themes, slogans, or stereotypes that have simplicity and clarity. That means you give a reference point. So if it is a slogan that is known to everybody, if it is a campaign that is known to everybody, then you are already giving a reference point, and this reference point actually creates the base for the clarity that is required. The thought process should be clear and very well organized. In order to ensure clarity in oral communication, one should use accurate and familiar words, proper intonation, stresses, and pauses. Now, one of the reasons that people coming from foreign countries do not understand questions from the audience when they give a lecture here in India is because the diction and the accent of English spoken in different parts of India is different. So they cannot follow it. Now, the important considerations to attaining clarity: choose precise, concrete, and familiar simple words. Construct effective sentences and paragraphs. Achieve appropriate readability and listenability. Simple and short words are often more effective than pompous and heady words. The reader or the listener should not have to consult a dictionary every 2 or 3 sentences. To be clear, one should convey one's idea at a time and not pack in several ideas together. The message should not leave scope for assumptions or multiple interpretations. Examples and illustrations should be used as and when necessary to eliminate any kind of ambiguity. Is that clear, or is there any ambiguity left in your minds?
Not really.
No doubt at all.
Okay, then we come to the next point, which is correctness. Correctness in the context of communication or effective communication relates not only to the accurateness of facts and figures, but also correctness of format, spelling, grammar, typographical errors, and punctuation. An error-free message not only boosts the confidence level of both the sender and the receiver, but also has a better impact on the audience or the readers. In this technological age, computers are equipped with tools for checking spellings and meanings. However, here too one has to be careful, because one has to make a choice of whether one would like to use American English, British English, or Indian English. The English must be consistent also. Once you have chosen whichever English you want to use, throughout the body of your communication, it has to be consistently only that English. Now, use of appropriate and correct language facilitates the communication process. Outdated or redundant information should be discarded by all means. In this rapidly changing world, what is relevant today may be outdated tomorrow. So if you are looking up the internet and if you think that Wikipedia or Google is the be all and end all of everything, you're mistaken, because there are many errors there and it is not updated all the time. So any technical terms used must conform to the level of education and knowledge of the recipients. You see, now you are addressing a batch of school students and you're talking about a subject on physics. Now, if you address the school students in a manner that you would be addressing postgraduate students, they will never understand the terms. So, you have to first analyze your target audience and use your technical jargon in conformity with their level of education and knowledge. That is very, very important. If you provide incorrect information, particularly in the public domain, then this can tarnish the image of your organization or company. And then your boss is going to haul you up and say, how come this has gone into the public domain? And you will lose your job. You see? A communication also delivered at the correct time. So when we talk of correctness, we also mean the correctness of time, appropriateness of time. You see, even children learn that. See, when to tell mommy what, when to tell daddy what, yeah?
When the mood is good.
When the mood is good. So, similarly, in a company situation also, you will have to see and wait for the appropriate time. Concrete communication implies that the message is clear and focused and not vague and general, and likely to be misinterpreted, because if a message is vague and general, then the likelihood of the message being misinterpreted increases. Okay? Or it should induce in the reader or in the listener the feeling that the communication should be taken seriously. So let us take an example here. So you come across an advertising copy, the Dabba wizard will save you time every day. Now, does this enthuse you to use the Dabba wizard? Is it enough information?
I don't know what the Dabba wizard is.
You don't even know what the Dabba
Neither do
wizard is. Yeah. There's no passion, no vivid detail, nothing that creates emotion in this message, and nothing that tells people in the audience why they should care for this product. Okay? The message isn't concrete enough to make a difference. Now, have a look at this variation of the same copy. Spending hours every day packing your kids' lunches? No more. Just take a complete Dabba wizard from your refrigerator each day to give your kids a healthy lunch and have more time to play or read with them, or even watch television. This version gives vivid images, induces the parents to create images in themselves and picturing that they can spend quality time with their children. Okay? And this kind of is a motivating force, right? And mentioning that the product is stored in the refrigerator also explains how the idea is very practical. Okay? So you don't have to go out of your way to do anything. It is just there for you to use. Okay? The great German playwright Bertolt Brecht had said, truth is concrete. Inversely, in the context of communication, concrete is true. Among the 7 C's of communication is consideration. Consideration implies stepping into the shoes of the others. Effective communication must take the audience into consideration. That is, their background, their mindset, their education and knowledge level, and their points of view, etc. The communicator must make an effort to envisage his audience, their requirements, their needs, emotions, as well as problems and limitations. You cannot go to a segment of society which is not earning enough to go and promote an Audi car. Okay? That is not consideration at all. You are not taking their kind of capacity into consideration. And the language and style of communication should conform to the approach, attitude, and mood of the audience. And at the same time, you also will have to keep the dignity and self-respect
Intact.
of the audience intact, and that should not be breached at any cost. Nor should their sensibilities be hurt in any manner, whether it is religious or gender-based. These sensibilities also should not be hurt when you're making a communication, and all this comes under consideration. Again, as I mentioned earlier, not the I approach but the you approach. One should create the feeling that your audience matters to you. You shouldn't be indifferent towards them.
They should feel important.
Absolutely, you should make them feel important. Exuding positivity rather than negativity will keep the audience stimulated, enthusiastic, and interested in the communication. If you want to use terms like no, sorry, regret, disagree, don't do it in a cut and dried manner. You see, choose an indirect manner so that it does not put the audience off from what you're saying. Courtesy stems from a sincere and conscious you attitude and a prudent avoidance of an I attitude. Okay? It is not restricted to politeness with mechanical insertions of please and thank you, because this comes very naturally to us. And to please and thank you, I could also add sorry. It's so easy to say sorry, but most of the time people don't mean it. Yeah? So it comes very mechanically. So it goes beyond these mechanical please and thank yous or the mechanical honorifics like Mr., Professor, Doctor, and so on. These are there. But courtesy goes a little beyond all that. See, also, although applying socially accepted manners in a form of courtesy, rather, it is politeness that grows out of respect and concern for others. That is what is understood by courtesy here. In business discussions, you should say things with force and assertiveness without being rude. The following guidelines could ensure courtesy. Do not hesitate to thank generously for a favor. Do not be inhibited to apologize for an omission or mistake that you have committed. When you say sorry, do mean it. Avoid irritating expressions. Words and expressions have negative connotations, should not be used in the communication. Desist from using discriminatory expressions based on gender, race, ethics, origin, and physical features. Now let us take an example of an office situation. Now here again, there is a kind of email that is being sent within the office. Dear Arnav, I wanted to let you know that I don't appreciate how your team always monopolizes the discussion at our weekly meetings. I have a lot of projects and I really need time to get my team's progress discussed as well. So far, thanks to your department, I haven't been able to do that. Can you make sure they make time for me and my team next week? Thanks, Bhaskar. This message is far from courteous. Such messages have the potential to vitiate the office atmosphere beyond redemption. The email simply creates bad feelings, lowers the office morale, and can even affect productivity. Even in difficult situations, a little bit of courtesy can help diffuse matters. Okay, so let's try a variation on that same message. Dear Arnav, I wanted to ask you for a small favor. During our weekly meetings, your team does an excellent job of highlighting their progress. But sometimes this uses up most of the available time before my team's turn comes. I'd really appreciate if you could give my team a little extra time each week to fully cover their progress reports. Thanks so much in advance. Best, Bhaskar. Does it sound better?
Less fights, no fights.
If one can remember these basic tools, that would go a long way. In conclusion, of course, I would like to tell you people one thing. Let me add that the 7 C's are effective tools for better communication. However, these should not be taken as 7 commandments. Rather, these tools should be prudently used by communicators in appropriate degrees to suit the situation, the style of the communicator, and the receptivity of the recipients. That means that you don't apply any of these tools anytime to any situation. It has to be in a proportion, and there you will be the best judge as to which aspect you would like to use more in which situation and what tool comes in handy for you in which situation.
You must use your consideration.
You must use your valued opinion and consideration before you apply these tools for your own effective communication.